Hello, lovely people. It's Nicola back in the Stitches and Slapdashery sewing room. I've been playing with a few different things this week. A friend came over earlier in the week and she brought all the stuff for sun dyeing. We weren't sure if we were going to be able to do it because we thought it was going to be a completely cloudy day, but we were sitting outside on my deck having a cup of tea and she decided we had enough sun. So she got all the stuff out of her car. And she had fabric and RIT dye and some mixing pots and all sorts. And we had all the other materials I needed in my garden because, of course, I have a large yard with tons of trees. So we were able to pick various leaves to use for laying on the fabric after we put the dye on. I got some short snips of us getting it all laid out and then taking off the leaves. I'll be showing you the results a little bit later on in the video. And I also managed to find at the thrift shop some books to practice momigami on. I have 2 books, which I hope the papers are thick enough inside. And I will show you that in another little segment. I haven't actually done it yet, but I'm going to get into that. I've brought some vegetable oil down and I'm going to start trying the scrunching to make it turn into a fabric-like material. I can't wait to do that and see how it turns out. I did a tiny bit of knitting. It really doesn't look any different from the last vlog. I've literally just added 11 rounds to the sleeve and I still need to add a little bit more length because it's not quite long enough on the first sleeve. So we won't even bother looking at that today. And I have done lots of slow stitching. Oh, I've been having so much fun with that. And I've been watching Annie Claxton doing so much of her stitching. And she talks about how it's just so relaxing and you just want to keep going and going and not putting it down. I'm finding that too. And I've got to thank Granny Sue, who left a comment on last week's vlog. And suggested to look at AliExpress because she gets her cotton Pearl 8 from AliExpress and she says it's really cheap. So I looked on there and it's really dangerous because everything in there is fairly inexpensive, right? But they also give you, if you're a new not subscriber, a new sign up. If you're a new shopper, you get a really good welcome deal. I got about 80% off one of my items that I put in my cart, which happened to be a rotary cutter. I have a cheap rotary cutter. I'll just grab it. It's super cheap and plasticky, but surprisingly, this was a purchase from AliExpress years and years ago. I'm not sure how many years ago, but when I initially got it out of the package, I squeezed the handle and I was like, why isn't it working? Why isn't it working? And something fell off it. But you know what? It was just a teeny little safety thing. There's actually a little safety button in here, which doesn't work because user error. Now I'll know for the next time. This, I think, only cost me about $10 with 10 blades. And I'm still using it and I still haven't finished the blades. Years later, that just goes to show I probably don't change them often enough. However, if I'm getting the exact same product and it looked exactly the same in the photograph, I think I'll be perfectly happy with it. And how much did it cost me for the cutter and blades this time? $2.50. You can't go wrong, can you? Even if the cutter was crap, you've got 10 blades, which normally if you go to the fabric store, you'll pay like $50 for. And I also got 10 little 43-yard balls of cotton, number 8 crochet cotton. They don't call it Pearl 8 on AliExpress, it seems, or the ones that I looked at didn't, but it was number 8 crochet cotton. I'm pretty sure it's exactly the same stuff but that Annie and all of her group are using. And initially I thought, wow, these are all like $1.50 for 10. I'm going to buy all the colors. But then I realized it's only one item that you get the welcome discount from. So it ended up coming off the rotary cutter, and I paid the regular price for the Pearl 8. But it still was it worked out to only $1 a ball. And I thought that was pretty good. I mean, you're getting 43 yards of thread on each one. And I bought one mixed set of bright colors and one mixed set of lighter colors. They do have boxes with gradients. So if you wanted just 10 shades of green, 10 shades of purple, you could do that as well. And it's called, I think it's Amohillo. Amohillo is the shop name, but I'll put the name of it under the video so that you know. But don't go buying a ton of it until it's arrived and I can vouch for it, okay? I don't want you coming back and saying, that was the wrong stuff, I hated it, it was rubbish. Just saying, that was the name that I found on my initial search, and that's what I got. And it shipped super fast. Of course, it's coming from China. I had some choices. On the sidebar, you have a choice of whether you want to order from China, the US, or Turkey, or all of them. And I said China, because what's the chances of something coming from the US getting tariffs on it right now? Pretty high, I would say. I don't know. I don't know if there's a minimum purchase for it to attract the tariffs, if it has to be a large amount to actually get the tariff dinged on it, but I wasn't going to risk it. And I know that in the old days of AliExpress, things you had to just expect them to take like 6 weeks. So I'm hoping they don't take that long, because I'm almost done with that scrappy pink tool covered practice thing I'm working on. And we are going to finish that off. I'm going to turn that into a project, and we're going to finish that off today. So you'll see me finish that today. I haven't done it yet. Getting to that. And then I'll be itching to start using my new pearl cotton on a new project, actually, a bit more intentionally, rather than just using what I had lying around in my sewing room. So I hope you enjoy this video. I didn't think I'd done much this week. I kept thinking, oh, I'm overdue for making a video. I haven't done any clips. I'm recording any clips this week. What am I going to show you? And then I thought, wait a second. I think I published on Monday or Tuesday, so no urgency. Okay, I relaxed. And then I thought, still need things to talk about. But somehow I seem to have found lots to talk about. So I'm going to start on that magazine paper now, or glossy book paper, and see if it works out the same as it does for people on the internet. I was rather excited to find these two books. They're identical at the Salvation Army thrift store today, because they're called Beauty is a Collection of Okanagan Art by C.E. Kruger. And I live in the Okanagan here in Canada. How awesome. I should probably apologize for any staining on my nails, because not only have I eaten pounds and pounds of apricots over the last couple of weeks, I have also dyed with various colors of Rit, and the orange really stuck to me. And also I had a couple of peaches for lunch. Oh, we went to the U-Pick at the fruit stand today, and I've definitely got some peach dye in there. So yeah, nails are a mess, but I don't want to cut them. They're looking so nice and long right now, and I just know I'm going to lose a nail any time soon. So I'm just appreciating them all while they're about the same length. So Beauty is a Collection of Okanagan Art, and I only had a really quick glance in here when I picked them up. They ended up being $4.99 for the two books. And as I say, I have not looked in them. Now, the video I watched, I think it was the Zetsters Lab one, and I also watched another one about momigami, which is that art of making a fabric type material out of glossy book pages. I'm hoping these pages are thick enough. But I had a quick look, and the colours in here are lovely. Oh, I think I should use this one first. Look at that. people with rain ponchos on bikes, and the colours are lovely. Hopefully you can see that. Have I got that properly centered? Yeah, I think I do. Beautiful coloured flower. Now I think that the colours get very muddied when you do this. So I'm going to be expecting them to be very blurry. Oh, look at this. This is perfect. I can't wait to try this. So I'm going to pull a couple of pages out of here and give this a go. So that, ooh, I think I just saw some lovely native art there. Where'd it go? Oh, there. Oh, that is gorgeous. This is too nice to rip up and scrunch up with oil. I think I'm going to have to keep these as they are because they're just beautiful. Now, if anyone knows if there's a way to transfer this sort of thing onto paper, no, fabric, and then embroider it, how could I transfer that image onto fabric? Oh, it's so gorgeous. See, these are beautiful, but they wouldn't come out looking like much because the colour is not there. They're very monochromatic. Wow. Such beautiful, beautiful art. Okay, so I'm going to grab that one with the rain ponchos. That one there. Pages aren't huge. There was an absolutely ideal book. As soon as I went into the Salvation Army, I think I might get a knife so I can get this out without tearing it. Found it. It was upstairs. Why was it upstairs? Oh yeah, because I cut a square hole out of some of my sketchbook pages and made it into a frame. Probably not the ideal way to get it out, but then it's going to get so scrunched up and messy anyway. Probably doesn't matter. Now, where was that other one I saw? That was absolutely lovely. Oh yes, the fruit. I'll do this one because it's got the contrast on it there. Whoops. Yeah, pretty on both sides. Yeah, I don't know why there were two there, but definite bonus. Okay, I have a little jar here in which I have put my sunflower oil. Now, I think you can use any kind of oil, baby oil. Some people actually use hand lotion as well, but I wonder if that would be greasy enough. I don't know. Put it where you can see it. All right, here goes. Do one at a time. So from what I've seen, you just start folding. Yeah, I think I started to tell you that when I first went into the Salvation Army, there was an amazingly perfect book. It was very large, it had very thick pages, and it was actually an art book, and I can't remember what the theme was, but it was beautiful. $17.99. $17.99, people, in a thrift store for a book, a hardback book. No, I don't think so. I don't think so. So I got these guys, and they were way cheaper. All right, so I think once you've done a little bit of initial folding, you get your fingertips oily. I'm gonna have to. Oh, there it goes. There goes the first drop on my sewing table. Okay, and then start scrunching. I've already torn it. But I don't think it matters if it gets torn, because you can use bits of it in various things. You don't necessarily need the whole page to be intact. Now, Zetsta's Lab, she managed to make a really cool bag. She obviously had her pieces stay in one piece, and she sewed them together on a sewing machine in one of her recent videos. This is really, really breaking up a lot. I don't know if it's because I just need to be more careful, or because I have long nails, or what. Or if it's just maybe too thin. This does take a while to do. Apparently you have to do it for like 10 solid minutes. Just can't wait to see if it softens up like other people's do. Yeah, it's getting really holy. Maybe I should have looked for a book with thicker pages. I don't know. It's good exercise with the grip. Yeah, look how much it's breaking. Wow. Well, all I can say is I don't know how people manage to keep a sheet of paper in one piece while they're doing this, because mine is falling apart like crazy. And I've only been at it for a couple of minutes now. Maybe my pages are too thin. I wondered if this would happen. The colour is slightly coming off this onto my hands. Also, this is absolutely disintegrating. This hasn't really changed much, but here, yeah, absolutely falling to pieces. And still doesn't feel like fabric. Like when other people do it, I have seen a result that looks like a soft piece of fabric. Well, I haven't been doing it for 10 minutes because, as you know, I am an impatient person. But it doesn't really seem like it's doing what it should be. It absolutely shredded. There's some parts which have maintained their colour quite nicely. Maybe that's because I haven't been doing it long enough. That piece there, you see, it's still bright orange. I wouldn't say it had a feel of fabric at all. Let's see. Maybe in the more crumpled areas, it definitely feels a bit more fabric-ish. So these little pieces would be okay for small embellishments if you like collage, I suppose. You definitely couldn't make anything out of it that required any sort of decent sized piece of fabric. I think we're going to put that one aside now because I'm going to try the second one, but without the pre-folding. I'll pop some oil here. Okay, let's try this without the pre-folding and see if that makes a difference. Right, I'll just let's oil the fingertips first, Nicola. Maybe oil my hands as well as my fingertips. I wonder if that would make it crack less. Okay, page number 2. We'll see if that makes a difference. I'm going to be more careful with it. However, I suspect it may end up the same as the other piece. Oh, yeah, there's a bit of a tear there at the edge. I don't think I've been doing this long enough yet, but at least it's holding together better. You can still see the flowers on that side and the rain capes on that side. And there are some small holes in it, but I think because I've used more oil on my whole hands, not just the fingertips, and I didn't start with the folding, I just went straight into scrunching, and I've been a lot more careful. I think it's working better. You do need to re-oil your hands fairly often. Presumably the softening from the oil also helps keep it all together. It feels quite fragile. You can still see the writing here. The writing has not blurred out. I think you get more blurring in the center. That's really pretty. You could definitely use that as the back of a piece of art, couldn't you? When I say the back, I mean the background, of course. It doesn't quite do everything evenly. I think the center and some of the edges scrunch well. Like this is all scrunched nicely and oiled up to the edge, but then there's a piece here, like an area which is still fairly unscrunched. So it might be a little difficult to get it done evenly. But if you didn't like that, see, you could easily just remove this edge part and just use the flower part here, the flower picture. Of course, then you wouldn't get that lovely frilly edge. Maybe you could tear it. And then this side, you can still see the separate colours from the rain capes, but it looks rather cool. Well, I don't know how much of that I'll be doing in the future, but I'm really glad I gave it a go. Yeah, it feels like a waxed fabric now. Obviously you can smooth it out to a certain extent, but there's going to be quite a bit of texture to it. And then these little pieces here, they can still be used for collage. So yeah, this corner barely got any scrunching at all. You can still feel it like a page. These crinkly bits are nice and soft. But yeah, tear easily. They do tear easily. Okay, now to go and get a nice soapy cloth and clean up my table. My table's clean. My hands feel lovely and soft. What a great way to do your skin a favour is pour oil on it and scrunch paper. These are the books I got from the library this morning. This one I just happened to come across and I grabbed it without even opening. It's called Abstract Embroidery, Slow Stitching with Texture, Colour and Creativity. And it looks lovely just from the cover. And then I got 3 more that I had on hold that are called, well, they all have collage in the title anyway. So we'll see what they're all about. We'll just do a quick look. So yeah, this one's got some beautiful textured work on the front. We'll see what it's all about. Abstract embroidery. I feel like this might have something to do with what I've been getting into lately. Okay, let's get to the colourful stuff. Lots of stuff about techniques and how-tos. So this is the list of projects here. So you've got coastal and seaside inspiration, alpine and mountain inspiration, and urban and man-made inspiration. And obviously she mounts her works in embroidery hoops as a frame. Oh, I just love these colours so much. I am definitely into coastal colours. I wonder if those are my favourite colours because I grew up on a small island. Wouldn't be surprised. She includes limpet shells and things in her work. I assume they're real limpet shells and not just pretend ones. I don't think you can get pretend ones, can you? Oh, she's got some beads in there. Lots of threads to look like seaweed and things like that. Oh, look at that beautiful rock. Oh, so pretty. So I'm not going to go deep into this book and talk about stitches or anything, but it looks like she uses fairly basic stitches. There's a lot of satin stitch there, a lot of beading, a lot of 3D thread work and stuff like that, and it looks lovely. This one looks like it has grass on it. Not real grass, of course. Yeah, so pretty. So I'll definitely have a longer look at that later on. Then I've got this one called the Collage Workbook, How to Get Started and Stay Inspired by Randel Plowman. It says it includes 50 project prompts and an image library. Good old Mod Podge. I don't think I've ever bought Mod Podge. No, I haven't. I haven't got into collage or decoupage enough. When I had a little practice with the decoupage, I just used watered down school glue. I thought, that'll do. And actually it did work. And I'm glad I didn't invest in an expensive bottle of Mod Podge because I found out that decoupage wasn't something I ever wanted to do again. But you don't know that unless you try. Creativity exercises, 5-minute collages. Playing with colour. That looks like a patchwork, doesn't it? Patchwork quilt. So again, lots of lovely colour in here, inspiration, a little bit of how-to, but mostly inspiration. Yeah. This one's called Collage Stitch Print and how do you pronounce that? I would say calligraphy, but then I'm like, hold on, it's collage. So is it collage-raphy for textile artists? It's by Holmes. And here we go. Ooh. Oh, this one includes stitching. Oh, now this one's going to be interesting. I am going to definitely enjoy looking at collage with stitching. That sounds like it's for me. Okay, it's giving you some chat about all the materials you might want to use. Let's get to the colourful stuff. I definitely want to flick to the colourful stuff. Not a whole lot of colourful stuff, actually. You'd expect this sort of book to be absolutely packed with colour, but it's a little more subtle than that. There's a little bit of stitch work, some trees. Machine stitching, wavy lines of stitching. Yeah, her colours are obviously a lot more subtle than some, but still very beautiful. And then Jeannie Baker playing with collage, and this has a bunch of seeds on here. This is probably one of the first ways we played with collage as children. When we were at school or kids at home, our parents probably gave us some macaroni and glue, and we stuck it to paper, and I bet you that was most of us starting out with collage. It looks like she's used quite a bit of edible things in hers. Maybe that's just for the front cover of the book. Let's see. Not a very thick book. She talks about pressing vegetation like leaves, which is always good. And all about threads and other things you can use. Ooh, that's pretty. So there's lots of natural things she's found you can use in collage. Fungi, berries, seeds, grasses. Beach materials. Oh, yeah, who doesn't love going to the beach and just picking up shells and things that are just strewn around? When I go back to visit my family, I always get down to the beach and try and find shells. I try not to bring them all home. But if it's a periwinkle, those are the ones that frequently are bright yellow. They come in other colours as well, but yellow seems to be the most popular one. I always bring a periwinkle shell home with me. I've got one on my kitchen windowsill. So this is a fairly simple book. It's not too complicated. Again, good inspiration. So that will be set aside for some good couch time later on. Now here's what's been taking up the majority of my crafting time this week. And this is what I'm putting in this lovely basket. I just love this denim basket I made with bits of fabric and fancy stitches on the sewing machine and denim. And it's very sturdy. I can't remember what I interfaced. I think that's heavy interfacing, non-woven, I think, because I just happen to have it in the sewing room. So upcycled jeans, a couple of handles, pocket that was actually a jeans pocket, and this bee here is one that I was given by a friend, and I think it's one of those bees that you're supposed to put on a cross-stitch kit when you're embroidering. So there it is. It's a needle keeper. Didn't think I was going to use it, but guess what? I need it now. It's pretty empty, really, this basket, because it's not taking up a lot of space, this project. There's all my embroidery flosses. I have to say I am loving using these little bobbins because they keep everything so much tidier. You know, look what happens when you're like me and you just take it straight off the skein. So, look at the back of this. I am not a person to keep this tidy on the back. I know I could have just trimmed my ends better and kept it way tidier, but hey, it's going to be lined, so what the heck. And I was glad I was able to check the back of it frequently because I needed to be sure that I had filled everything in fairly evenly. This bit, I don't know if you can see, it's got quite pale pink stitching on it, so it looks empty, the area, but it's not. So I've covered it all with stitching to within about ½ an inch of the edges, or about a centimetre. And I love it. Oh, I so love it. In a way, I wonder whether I should just keep on adding, but you know what? I filled every inch with stitches now, and I really, really want to see it made into something. So let's just go a little bit closer. That, I think, is my favorite thing, is that little leaf there. I did that quite early on. And then there's some flowers. And then we've got some more flowers that I did little French knots in yellow around them. And then my friend who was coming over for the sun dyeing, she said, I think you should do some triangles in there because it's a triangular piece. I was like, yes, definitely. That sounds like a plan. And then we've got, this was printed on the fabric. So I printed it. I followed the printing and then put all the little French knots around here. This pink here was the first thing I did. And then later on, I went and added the little yellow bits there. This was where there was some interfacing peeking out between the fabric, and I covered that up. I did a spiral here, which I then went over a second time with a second color and filled the gaps between the stitches with the green. And then here I did a back stitch and then went weaving in with the green and then just did the little extra bits that look like leaves sticking out. I had a lot of fun doing that, a lot of fun. And now I am going to think about what I am going to make with it. I do have an idea in mind. I just have to follow it through. I think I figured it out. So what I want to do is fold this up, fold this down, have this as the front of a little pouch. I might have to put that a little further up, like that. I found a pink button that almost looks like it's got hand stitching around the edge. Can you see that? And I've got a little bit of black elastic. Sadly, I don't have any pink elastic. This is black stuff that's left over from COVID mask making. That's how long it's been in the room. And I discovered this from my last fabric shopping spree. Look at that pink with the seeds. Oh gosh, it's perfect. This fabric is very, very interesting. It's tons of panels of color. So this is one piece of quilt cotton. You've got a strip of this lovely turquoise, a strip with these purple flowers and what looks like seeds or leaves in this green. You've got this yellowy green here. And then you have, messy table, clattery scissors, sorry. This lovely grey one, which looks like, could be anything really. Seed heads, flowers, seashells. And then this section. And this is how wide I need it to be. It's the perfect width it was meant to be, wasn't it? It really was. So I'm going to go and cut a piece the same size as this. I'll put them right sides together and sew around them. And I'll incorporate that piece of elastic so that it's sticking out right here. And then sew the button on. Can't wait to see how it turns out. I've cut out my piece of lining, exactly the same size as this piece. I'm going to baste a piece of elastic here. I don't want it to be too big. It just got to be enough to stretch over the button. So I really don't need a lot. I'll probably baste it with a whole bunch of it sticking out like this, right in the middle. And then I'll put them face to face, sew around, leave a little gap for turning. I always love this part because all of the raw edges get hidden away and it just looks amazing. Time to break out the sewing machine. If you want to know what size this piece is, purely out of interest, because it was completely unintentional how big it turned out, the length of it is about 14 inches and the width is about 7.5, which is about 35 centimeters by 20 approximately. I was just measuring it so I could put my elastic in the middle, and I thought maybe you wanted to know what size it was. All right, so when my sewing machine comes along here, it's going to be sewing about there. Let's see if that's enough. Oh, yes, that's fine. That will do. Triple check. I'm just going to use the thread I have in the machine, which is, I think, white on the bottom and pale pink on the top, but that's fine. There we are. Basted on. Hope you can see that. Oh, yeah. So now I'm going to whack this on here. I just can't believe I found something that feels so perfect for that. This is why it's great to have a stash. Great to have a stash. I used to work at Fabricland and I used to bring so much home. A lot of the time it was remnants and it was a really good deal. Sometimes it was just because I absolutely loved it. Sometimes the price was right. I mean, I had to love it and the price was right. I wouldn't just bring home any old stuff, with a couple of exceptions. But once I left there, I had to be a bit more picky about fabric because I was paying customer prices, or I couldn't grab stuff because I had just seen it at the right time before the customers got to it, if you know what I mean. But what I've been doing, I have done 2 fabric shops. There's one time I had to buy some red fabric because it was to finish off a quilt. It was absolutely in need of the perfect red, and I had to go and pay full price at a different fabric shop, and it pained me to do so. But since then, there have been two proper shopping trips, like shopping expeditions, with a deliberate intention to add to the fabric stash. And that looks like it's coming out a bit bigger, and probably because I cut around the fabric. Yeah, okay, we'll flatten it out in a minute. So let's move that a minute. So when I went to the fabric shops, I looked in the clearance sections. I looked at what was marked down because full price, it was just blowing my mind. And I thought, yes, I love some of these fabrics, but I can't justify paying $34 a meter for them. Ooh, a little bit of oil left there. I hope I'm not getting any oil on this. That would suck, wouldn't it? So yeah, I had in mind how much I was willing to pay for a meter of quilt cotton. And what I did is, if I thought it would make a good lining, if it was a fairly bland sort of fabric, which would make a good lining for a bag that wouldn't compete with the exterior fabric or would be fairly neutral, I would get, say, a meter of it. Some things, if they were a panel, obviously you have to go with the panel. Other things I might get half a meter of. I think a meter is much more usable. Half a meter is kind of small. That would be the size of, say, 2 fat quarters joined together. And that can be quite small. When you find out that you want to line a bag, like a big tote bag, like some of the ones I've been making recently. Like the last couple of years, I've made tote bags for Dress for Success, which is the organization that helps disadvantaged women get clothes that will take them to job interviews and help them move on with their lives. And the tote bags for them have to be huge so that they can take all their lovely new clothes home. And of course, you need a lot of lining for that. A lot of lining. I don't think it matters where I leave my turning gap, as long as it's not on the ends where it's going to be the most visible. So maybe what I'll do is I will grab, no, I won't use the clip. I will just put the pin at a different angle so that I don't just go sailing past the place I want to do the gap. So this is going to be my front. So it's going to be like this. And I can just, yeah, I think if I just leave the turning gap about here, maybe about that wide, that'll be perfect. This is so different from what I was doing last year. When I was sewing for the Farmers and Crafters Market, speed was of the essence, and I had to just churn out as many bags as I could, as quickly as I could, because I was building my inventory from January through to May. Unfortunately, I didn't actually make any money at the markets. I was at the same market all summer, same pitch every Sunday, in all weathers, whether it was raining or baking hot. And I don't think I even broke even, because I ended up giving away some stuff to the lovely family who were running one of the stalls across from me. But I had a lot of time on my hands last year. Once I left Fabricland, I ended up having 10 months off, and it wasn't going to be that long. But Mr. Stitches, aka my husband, got throat cancer, and I ended up deciding to not go back to work until he was better. And that's what I did. All right. Where's my gap? There's my gap. All right, we're going to pause you while I sew this. I'm going to trim this because there's going to be quite a bit of bulk in the seam with that batting on there. Where did that go? So I'll cut across the corners like so. And then just trim this down a little bit. I did a little back stitch to and fro where the elastic is, just so it doesn't pull out. So my plan is, once this is all turned out, to fold it how I want it and then hand stitch the sides together. Wow, I'm getting so much into the hand stitching. This never would have happened before. So I think where this gap is, I won't trim there, because I don't want to be fighting with a teeny tiny seam allowance when I'm trying to hand stitch that gap shut. So if you're new to the channel, you may be wondering what about the slapdashery part. If you've been here a while, you'll know exactly what the slapdashery part's all about. I don't know, I think slapdash a British word, really, more of a Britishism. I think it might be. You can probably guess what it means, right? If you're being slapdash about something, you're just trying to get it done regardless of the quality of the work. But I don't think we necessarily need to strive for perfection, if there is such a thing. It's not like our lives depend on it. I can understand if you were a surgeon, a heart surgeon. Yes, perfection. Somebody else's life depends on it. But in my case, the things that I make, mostly perfection is not necessary. That's not to say I don't take more care with things if I'm planning to charge money for them. But you know what? These days I don't charge money for things. I do things for my own enjoyment, and if it makes something nice that somebody else might appreciate, and I think I could gift it to them, then I do. Oh, I love this bright pink. It goes so well with the outer part. Now, I haven't considered top stitching. In fact, I wasn't even going to get my iron out. But I should probably think about that. I think top stitching, yeah, I suppose if I was doing the top stitching by hand, then maybe that would be okay. Because machine stitching would just wreck it, I think. Mind you, there is still some machine stitching in the background of this, because that's how it started out, as a machine stitched fabric piece before I did all the hand stitching on it. I'll take a look at it when I flattened it out, but I don't really want to top stitch it. So now I've just got to fold these little seam allowances in, try and make them match up so that they look like they belonged. So I've hand sewn this gap shut, not perfectly, and I turned it this way and I steam ironed it from this side so that at least the edges are squished down and not all puffy like they were before, because I was thinking it looked a bit odd. So this is the front, this is the lining, and now I just need to figure out where to fold it. I think I'll use, ouch, I burnt myself on the iron. Good grief, Nicola. Guess you hadn't already burned yourself this week. What is with me? I tell you, just lately I have been hurting myself multiple times. Okay, I'm just going to figure out where the folds are going to go. Then I can do the sides and put the button on. I've nearly finished sewing the side pieces down. I'm glad my lining goes so well with my outer because you can see it poking out at the sides. I suppose if I wanted to avoid that in future, I could make the lining slightly smaller, perhaps, and it would pull the pretty side in a bit on the edges. But I don't mind it. I was a little worried that my stitches were a bit visible, but then I realized that if I just pull them tighter, they pull the edges of the fabric together better, and then you can't see them. So that's awesome. Wow. I cut one piece of thread, and so far it has done the turning gap and both seams. And I think I've got enough left to double it and sew my button on. Wow, that never happens. Oh my god, I love this pink. Oh, it's so gorgeous. It just finishes this perfectly. I'm so excited. Doesn't take much, does it? All right. Just fold this over, figure out where the button's going to go. I'm going to try not to catch the lining in this so that it doesn't show through. It doesn't matter if there's a knot on the outside of the fabric because it's going to be hidden inside the button, underneath the button. I know what I meant. I could have gone for a magnetic snap, but then I'd have had to think head and put it into the lining here and then into the fabric here. So I rather like the after the fact button because then you're not committed to a specific spot until the end when you know how it's all going to look and exactly where you want it placed. There we go, that's the last stitch. So I've kept all the stitching on top, and I'm just going to do a couple of times around for the shank and then finish off underneath. So the nice thing about the elastic going around the button there is that even if it doesn't perfectly go with the fabric, it's hidden when the thing's shut anyway. So all you see is the button. Done. Oh, I'm so pleased with that. I know it's not as good as what some people do. I mean, you've got the machine stitching there from that original piece of scrappy fabric. And then I've got my basting stitches, which I left in, which are just a sort of subtle pink colour. But those stitches are overshadowed by all the hand stitching. And I'm really loving it. Wow. And then, yeah, that fabric for the lining just made it for me. And I made sure to fold it so that my favorite bits of the embroidery were right on the front. Beautiful. I'm so excited about this. I don't know if it's going to be for me or for someone else yet, but I am really, really happy with that. I had a lot of joy making that, mostly in all those lovely embroidery thread stitches. So I have one more thing to show you before we say goodbye, and that is the fabric that I made with the help of my friend this week, with the sun dyeing. So we used cotton damask tablecloths, and there was actually almost like a cherry pattern woven into one of them, which you can faintly see through the dye, which is rather cool. We did 3 pieces of fabric. I did one and she did one, and then we did one together. Now, she did hers way better than mine because she did much darker dye. She used much more saturation for hers, and it definitely works better for the dyeing. I think it looks better to have more dye, brighter colors. And then so once you've soaked the fabric and you lay it out on the ground, we did it on my lawn. The grass is a bit long, or should I say the clover and the yarrow and various other indigenous plants are a bit long, and so the fabric was a bit wavy. It wasn't completely flat. We used a bunch of leaves and laid it out, and then we went off and had a cup of tea. So by the time we got everything laid down on the grass, it was probably after 2, and we only left it out there maybe 2 hours. Afternoon sun, just the afternoon. And when we took the leaves off, you couldn't really tell in most places that there had been leaves there. What would have been lovely is to have seen that the dyed places without the leaves had been lighter because it had been lightened by the sun, and the leaf shapes were maybe showing darker, or some sort of outline of what we put on there, but you couldn't really see most of it. I'll show you how it turned out. So with mine, I painted some green. Let me just make sure I'm showing you the correct side. I think this is the right side. I painted some green on it, and I splattered it with some yellow, and then I slapped on some brush strokes with orange. It's kind of ugly. And let me just see whether you can see anything of the things that I laid on there. I put some of them onto the orange parts, thinking if it was going to show up on anything, it would show up on the orange streaks. But really, no. You cannot really tell that I put leaves on there and left it to dry. She said to heat set it afterwards in the dryer, so I put both of my pieces. She let me keep the one that we did together as well as my own, which I thought was really generous of her, things we were using all her fabric. And I put it in the hot dryer for 20 minutes afterwards, and that's supposed to set the dye. And then the other piece, this is way more beautiful in my opinion, way more colourful, of course. So we did a section of green, which it got splattered with orange, possibly as well as the red, I'm not sure. And then there's a section of orange. I mean, look how much more intense this colour is. And if I look through it, I can see where the cherries or the grape pattern in the damask are visible. So there's an orange section, a red section, and a green section. And let me just see if I can see anything that looks like it might be a leaf. Maybe there. She's shown me some fabric that she's done before, and she got a really nice result. It's very subtle. It's not super strong. But yeah, we felt like we just didn't get a result at all. The fabric is definitely usable for something, though. Just because it doesn't have leaf prints on it doesn't mean I can't use it for something. This one feels, because this one was so saturated with dye, I feel like I should probably wash this. Because it feels like there's too much dye in this section here. So I think that would probably make sense to wash it. So what did I learn from that? We're going to try doing it with natural dyes next time, because the RIT didn't seem to do the job. But I also think we should have the fabric on a much flatter surface, like a table or a concrete pad, rather than my grass. Or do it somewhere where the grass is trimmed to a nice and neat 1 inch and the fabric isn't all lumpy. and also do it in the morning, which will give the whole day on a perfectly sunny day to do what it needs to do to actually leave an imprint on the fabric. It was fun though. We were hoping other friends would join us, and it turned out just to be me and one friend, but that was okay. It was a good initial experiment, and I'm sure we'll try it again later on this summer. I think I've talked to you about everything I was going to talk to you about. It turned out to be a really interesting creative week. So thanks for joining me on this little journey of exploration. I hope you are enjoying your own journeys of exploration and creativity and keeping excited and engaged in whatever you do. And I'll see you again next time with more fun stuff. Bye for now.